This is not what good roaming looks like.
Load the new mag!
This is
They're shooting everything, but they're not hitting anything.
Let me explain. Roaming is not actually about getting kills, it's more about wasting time. Now it's great if you are able to secure kills, but that shouldn't be your primary focus. Going for hero plays, going for flanks, going for a tons of kills to get your KD higher is not what roamers are actually meant to do. Roamers are meant to be the first line of defense to an entire strategy when it comes to Rainbow Six Siege. They're the first people that ever get into contact and ever get into gunfights. A lot of people may get this confused with the entry fragging playstyle on attack, where attackers are forced to get kills to be able to take space to get into the building. But on defense, that's not necessarily the case. All you're meant to do as a roamer is waste time. By passively applying ghost pressure, or by shooting every drone that comes near you and keeping them guessing as to where you are and where you can come from next. This ghost pressure of them not knowing where you are and where you're going to come from is exactly what makes them have to waste time trying to roam clear you in the first place. This is why operators like Vigil and Caveira excel at roaming, because it makes it so hard to track them down, hence they have to waste so much time tracking you down and they have less time to execute on the bomb site onto your anchors. Less time on the bomb site means that they have less time to use utility to get the bomb down, they have less time to get kills, which makes them more stressed out because they have to do things in a faster rate, which will make them make more sloppy decisions and hasty decisions. This is perfect for you. I would rather have a roamer that wastes 2 minutes of the attacking team's time and gets no kills than a roamer that dies within the first 30 seconds and gets 2 kills and wastes absolutely 0 time. Does this mean that you have to be extremely passive as a roamer? No, not at all. You can be very aggressive, but you don't want to be so aggressive that you get yourself killed in the process. You want to be able to be aggressive and manage your aggression and know whenever to be passive. Which brings me into my second tip. When do you be aggressive and when do you be passive? Well, a good rule of thumb is you want to be aggressive when you are down in man count to re-secure the man advantage, and you want to be passive when you're up in man count. Now this is great if you are an anchor and you're playing on site, but it is a little bit different if you're actually a roamer. Depending on what operator you're playing and where you're playing on the map, your aggression is going to differ in when you're aggressive and when you're passive. But a great rule of thumb is if they're applying a lot of pressure to you, you can be passive and give up the room, only shooting drones when they drone you out. But if they're not particularly worried about you, maybe they're not roam clearing you as much, maybe they're passively roam clearing you, you can be aggressive to get their attention and be like, hey, nope, look over here, roam clear me, and then you can waste more time, right? So you use aggression to make them come to you, and you play passively to make them go away from you in case you're being way too pressured and it's like a 3v1 across the map, right? So you play passive to stay alive, and you play aggressive to waste parts of their time. Now, you don't actively have to be shooting in their face to be aggressive at the right moment. You can do something which is called ghost pressure, which is my third tip. Ghost pressure is you applying pressure when you're not actually there, almost as if a ghost was applying the pressure, hence the term ghost pressure. I've talked about this countless times in my videos, but essentially you can make fake rotates, or you can shoot random bullets throughout the map so that people know that you're there, or you can shoot a drone near where they're playing and then run away, so they think that you're near when in reality you're not even there at all. You can put random head holes with alibi clones next to them to make you think that you're playing off of the alibi clones and make them roam clear certain rooms. You could flank, hit an air jab, and then leave, so now they think you're on the flank and they don't know where you are and they have to waste time roaming you. But applying ghost pressure and just being a little thorn in their backside and just, like, you know, reassuring to them, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm here, hey, by the way, you have to roam clear me, right, is applying ghost pressure at its finest. This is what you need to be doing as a roamer, especially on very sneaky operators like Vigil and Caveira. It's not necessarily as important if you're playing an operator like Solus, or somebody who is a bit more passive at roaming, or somebody who is a bit more kill heavy on roaming like Warden, but it's very, very important if you're using utility in specific on this operator to waste time. Which does bring me into my fourth tip. You want to be roaming differently depending on the operator that you're playing. So, like I said, Cav and Vigil are meant to be sneaky operators, but they actually play very differently from each other. Vigil is meant to be sort of a bastion on the roam. He sits in one place and he forces you to roam clear him. How does he do this? Well, if he denies your ability to drone him, then you have to face check him and face check the room, or Dokkaebi call him, or Jackal scan him, whatever it may be. He forces you to have to roam clear. So he makes his map presence known, and as soon as you try to roam clear him, he either gets aggressive on you or he just completely leaves. He's always applying ghost pressure and always trying to take control of rooms, never really showing his face unless he needs to. Now, Caviera is a lot different. Caviera doesn't hold on to map control and hold on to very specific rooms until you drone her out. Caviera is the best roamer when it comes to applying passive ghost pressure. Caviera, because of the threat of an interrogation even in the hands of a bad player, makes attackers have to stick together and roam clear if they want to do anything else throughout the round. Not only this, but because of Caviera's silent step, they never know where you're going to come from next. You could flank, you could be right in front of them, you could be flanking from a different direction. Now they have to watch multiple flanks, right? So on Caviera, you want to be more on your feet. You want to be coming from multiple different angles. Hey, I just shot my gun over here so they know I'm here. Well, 3 seconds later, I'm over here. You're constantly going to different places at once and showing your face in different places. So the difference in playstyle here is Vigil is a lot more I'm going to stay in this room and hold this room heavy, and Caviera is more on her feet. No pun intended. So roaming really does differ depending on your operator, and I'll go through all of them right now. So like I said, Vigil, he's meant to hold one room, while Caviera, like I said, is meant to be more on her feet. Oryx is kind of like Cav. Because of his Oryx dash, he can easily rotate from one place to another, which allows him to do the same thing that Cav can do, which is applying pressure at multiple points at the map to make them really annoyed and scared of a flank that may be happening. The ability to fastly climb up hatches as well further reinforces this flank and show your face playstyle. As Solus, you want to be more of a passive roamer. You don't necessarily want to be going aggressive and getting kills, you just want to be roaming for utility and intel. Whether it be roaming below the site to deny a plant, whether it be roaming to where you know they spawn to deny drones. But she's a lot more like Vigil in terms of the fact that she just sits in rooms, destroys drones, and leaves. Really just wasting a lot of time and trying to hold map control for as long as she passively can. Alibi is a bit of a different case though. Alibi is meant to really hold one part of the map for as long as she can. With Alibi, you really want to be playing your life in most scenarios. As Alibi, you play off of your prismas. Once your prismas get shot, you swing the enemy that's getting pinged. If you have observation blockers in front of your prismas, they're more likely to shoot them, so you just want to be playing off of your clones as much as possible, which means you don't really want to be roaming and going for flanks because your clones can't come with you. So you want to be holding one room or one area of the map in particular as best as you can and for as long as possible. Due to the fact that you're not really meant to be on your feet and apply ghost pressure, you want to be a tad bit more aggressive to further hold the space that you're trying to hold so that the attackers don't get it for absolutely free. With Mozzie, you just want to be doing the same thing as Solus, where you passively roam near a site for information, or for anti-information. You just put Pest in the area that you're roaming, and you hold a room for as long as possible with your Pest, passively backing out of room to room depending on if your Pests get destroyed or take a camera. Using his Pests as cameras in the prep phase by taking over prep phase drones is not really a good idea, because if you just want 3 cameras, play Valkyrie. But those are all of the main roamers. People like Legion, Ella, Thorn, and Warden aren't really supposed to be roamers, but people roam with them anyways. So I won't be heavily talking about them in this video. Now, your playstyle when roaming will differ from operator to operator, sure. But with each roamer, learning when to flank is around the same. Which brings me into my 5th tip. You need to learn when to actually flank and when not to flank. Now, like I said, your flanking and on your feet playstyle can differ from operator to operator, sure. But there's a golden rule as a roamer no matter what operator you're playing that can tell you when you need to be flanking and when you need to be holding a room. The best time to flank is whenever you get droned out and you get pushed out of a room. This normally happens when people are heavily droning you and you have 2 to 3 people trying to roam clear you at once. Obviously, you're going to need to leave the room so that you don't die and you can waste time elsewhere. Well, the best place to waste time elsewhere is on the flank. They push you out of one room and then you flank behind them on a staircase. When you go for a flank, you don't even need to go for a flank for kills. As long as you're making presence known that, hey, I'm behind you, so now you need to actually roam clear me again and waste more time, then that's all you really need to be doing. You can flank aggressively with Cav or you can flank passively with other operators. It does not matter. But flanking when you get flushed out of a room or flanking whenever your other roamer is being pressured so that you can help your other roamer is a great strategy, especially in this roam heavy meta. Now, learning when to flank is cool, but if all of your team is dead, then you shouldn't be flanking, so you need to learn when to also come back to site, which brings me into my 6th tip. Learning when to come back to site is very important, because as a roamer, yes, your job is to waste time, but what does it matter if all the attackers are in site and they planted the bomb already? As a roamer, you don't want this to happen. If they're rushing site and they're not even trying to roam clear you, flanking can do you justice, but if it takes you too long to go on the flank, then it doesn't matter anyways. So you want to be coming back to site the second that your anchors are getting into more than one gunfight at a time. Now, I brought you onto Chalet to further show you what I mean. Let's pretend that most of your team is defending the basement site, and you as a Vigil are off roaming. As Vigil, let's say that you're roaming top floor in Library, or in Master, depending on what you're trying to flank. Now, at what point as the Vigil should you just rotate back to site and help your team? Do you rotate back down main stairs whenever the wall gets opened? Do you rotate back down after the bomb has been planted? Do you rotate down after they're starting to drone out your defenders? Well, the answer to all of those questions is none. The only time that you want to be going back to site is if you have more attackers pressuring the actual bomb site than pressuring you. So let's say that I have 4 attackers pressuring the basement, whether it's through getting walls or trying to open them in general, and I only have 1 person trying to roam clear me. It's much more imperative, especially if I only have like 1 to 2 people on site, for me to come back to site and just apply some pressure so they can't as easily walk in. Because if they walk in and get the bomb down, then my roam is completely useless. But if it's only 2 or 3 people opening a wall and trying to attack, and you have 2 to 3 anchors on the site and the other people are trying to roam clear you, then you should stay on the roam. Now, typically people really only pressure the site in a way that you need to come back to the site to whenever it's like the first minute 30 and the round has already passed. So it's not something that you particularly have to think about all that much, but that golden rule should help you in most circumstances. Another thing that is imperative to roaming is running impact grenades, which is my 7th tip. As a roamer, if you have the option of running any secondary utility and impact grenades, you want to choose impact grenades every single time. Why is this important? To show you why you need to run impact grenades, I'm on Oregon. Now let's pretend that the site is basement and you're roaming top floor as Vigil again. I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you're roaming in attic and you're trying to hold off attackers from getting into attic, or maybe you're going here so that you can flank the first floor. Either way, as Vigil, you're in top floor in attic, particularly right now. Now, if attackers are swarming you, they're coming from the kids' window, they're coming from white stairs, they're coming from the dorms window, they're coming from white stairs, they're coming from trophy, and you're just getting surrounded and you're stuck in attic with no rotate, then you're pretty much dead and you have to play your life. But let's say that you have an impact grenade. Well, now you can open a rotate for yourself and now you can escape. Maybe go for a flank or waste as much time as possible by killing drones in tower and then leaving immediately after. That one single impact completely saved the amount of time that you're able to roam, and effectively roam for that matter, which might be the reason that you won the round, just because you brought impact grenades. Another cool thing about impact grenades, especially on operators like Caviera that down people a lot, is if you down somebody with any roamer in general and you don't want to finish the kill because typically there's another attacker behind them, you can easily throw an impact grenade from cover to kill anybody that you've downed. So having impact grenades is very important for that reason also. Not only is running impact grenades good for getting kills and rotating out, but it's also good for setting up the actual site. 9 times out of 10, the anchors that you have on site don't have anything to set up a site with unless they're playing somebody with a shotgun. So you need to be using your impacts to help make rotations if your teammates don't have the ability to do so. Even if you're not making rotations, as a roamer, you should be helping set up site in general, which brings me to my 8th tip. Because roamers typically have no utility they need to put down in the prep phase, as a roamer, you should be helping up set up site a lot. So as you can see in the top left corner, you have 10 reinforcements in the reinforcement pool. As a roamer, I'm going to give you a quiz. Should you be reinforcing 1 wall, 2 walls, 4 walls, or 6 walls? I'll give you a few seconds to answer this question. Well, if you guessed anything below 5, then you're actually wrong. Roamers are supposed to set up the majority of the reinforcements. Now, when I say roamers, I mean you and the other roamer. I'm not saying that you single-handedly have to reinforce 6 reinforcements. But the anchorers should be the people who are setting up site the least, contrary to what you might think, because they're the people that are actually on the site. But if you think about people like Fenrir, like Azami, they have a lot of utility to set down. 5 for both of them to be exact. You, as a Vigil player, have nothing to set down, so you should be reinforcing walls. Maybe you reinforce this wall, and you go upstairs and reinforce 2 hatches. You have 30 seconds to do that. So that's a lot of time for just 4 reinforcements that only take a few seconds to reinforce in general. Look at how long it takes to reinforce this wall. That wasn't that much time, and you only have to do that 4 times with a little bit of running in between. So as a roamer, you really should be helping your team set up site for this and other specific reasons. Not only should you be using reinforcements as a roamer, but there's a second piece of utility that you should be using too, and that is cameras, which brings me into my 9th tip. As a roamer, you need to be on cameras within the first 30 seconds to a minute of the round. Now, you'd assume that your anchors want to be doing this, because they're sitting in sight, not really doing anything for the first few moments of the round. But the reason you want to be doing this as a roamer is because, in particular, you want to know where to roam. If you get on the outside cameras, which are really the cameras that you need to be on as a roamer in particular, you'll know where they spawn and where they're going to be pushing because because of where they spawned, because of what default camera they'll shoot. So if I'm right here on this camera and I see that they shot this camera, I can immediately assume, if I'm playing in the basement, that they're going to push CC. So now as a roamer, I know, hey, let me go over here, let me open up a rotate for garage wall, or maybe even some head holes, and now I can play in lower garage, and then drop oil pit. Or I can play in rafters. I can give myself a rotate here, and then I can play top rafters. Once they come in the door, apply a little bit of pressure, and then leave. Now imagine if you hadn't gotten on cameras, and you were roaming somewhere all the way across the map in somewhere like strip, then your roam wouldn't have done anything, and you essentially would have been a useless teammate off-site. This is why getting on cameras within the first 30 seconds of the round as a roamer is so important. Now, you can have teammates and anchorers do this for you. I actually recommend it over you doing it yourself, so that you can watch out if you get droned. But chances are you're a solo queue player, and you can't rely on your teammates to get on these things, so I would just do it yourself. But even if you can't rely on your teammate, you still should be communicating with your teammate as a roamer. Whether it be by you getting on cameras and seeing where they're going and be like, hey, they're gonna be pushing CC really heavily there, I'm gonna roam, prepare for a blue and oil pit rush. All of that information you just gave to your team, even if they're not reliable, now they have no excuse to not be defending exactly where you want them to be defending, and it just took one comm to be able to do that. That's how easy it is. Not only this, but there's various ways as a roamer that you can easily and effectively communicate with your team to win the game. Which comes into my 10th tip, communicating with your team. Communicating with your team is very, very important as a roamer. Now, you might not think this because roamers are just getting into gunfights, and communicating with your team doesn't do much if you're dead. But like I said, as a roamer, your job is to waste time. It's not to get into gunfights and to get kills as much as that might help your roam. So that's not really a valid point. As a roamer, communicating with your team is vital, because like I said, you can communicate where the attackers are pushing to help your anchorers better suit how they're anchoring. But also, giving your teammates, not even just your anchorers, but your other roamers comms, will allow your roamers to help you on the roam and go for flanks that can potentially win you the round and win you the game. So communicating with your team, your roamers, anchors, and everybody in between is vitally important if you want to win a single round roaming in Rainbow Six Siege. If you want to win every single game and climb to champion though, check out this video next. My name's Alka, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.